Alright, here's the amp in as found condition. Got it off Facebook Marketplace for a pretty good price. Guy said the makes a bunch of scratchy noises, especially with the foot switch. But mostly it was in good condition, he said. But as I found an old Fender, it needs some work. A lot of the electronics were still all original and needed new caps. It had a few of its own unique issues. It had an extra Fender badge screwed to the back, the old good old UL symbol, and the hum balance pot. 4 6L6s, big powerful amp. And a black grow cloth. I really did not care for that black grow cloth, and that's maybe why it sat on Facebook for a while. Maybe others didn't like. I didn't think the black grow cloth was original, but it was. I decided to go ahead and change it out, and it did come with an aftermarket foot switch. Definitely hum. Some rushing water here and there. Definitely needs caps. Who knows what else? But it may sound awesome when that's done. So we're getting this Twin Reverb clean. I went ahead and checked the tubes. RCA. These are probably the original 1976 tubes that came in here. And I know one of the preamp tubes that he pulled out of there was bad with the Sylvania. We'll check the pre's, see if they're all Sylvanias. But RCA's in the power section originals, that's probably a good thing. They're probably all still good. Awesome. Interesting thing is that first RCA, the red was all burnt off on it. This one's still bright red RCA, 7552, probably 52nd week of 75, and the speaker date codes are 76s, and the guy seemed to think from something he read on the chassis this was 76. We'll check the transformer codes, but everything's pointing to a 1976 Twin Reverb with original RCAs. Nice. So the far right tube, that one, the RCA was real blackened. The middle two, the RCA was pretty red. And then this left one, so really the very first one, RCA is almost cooked off it too. So I wonder if he hadn't had those two middle ones pulled at some point and they weren't used for years and years, possibly. And the outer two were ran so this thing would be in a quieter mode. Certainly possible. Either that or just the outer two cooked for some reason, which seems even stranger. Preamp tubes turned out to be a mixed bag. A little bit of RCA, Sylvania, RCA, JJ, and a National. National said made in Yugoslavia. Maybe a National Valco? I don't know. So overall, seems like pretty good tubes. Okay, first look inside this chassis. First impression is that overall it looks pretty original. 1976 components. The bypass cap electrolytics. Here, they're all original. They're gonna have to go. Bias electrolytics here, and probably there. They're original. They gotta go. Somebody's been here to set the bias and has added blue, gray, orange to adjust the bias. Probably fairly recently. It looks pretty recent. He said he had this serviced at Killer Vintage, so they might have set the bias. But it doesn't look like they did a whole lot else. Definitely one of those wax impregnated boards from the mid-70s. It could be worse, but it's pretty waxy, so we might have some DC if it's dirty or collected dirt or smoke. Tell you what, the cabinet was really dirty, just like dust. It seemed like years and years and years of dust everywhere. But inside here was protected pretty well. It's really not too bad in here. I was thinking we're gonna have to maybe add to the reverb circuit bypass cap to help boost it, but I don't know if we're gonna have to. It looks like we might have those on the reverb circuit already. We'll check that out. And that one might have been added, actually. That doesn't completely look factory. To do some research. They might have been added to boost the reverb. Although, first thing I thought was the reverb seemed weak, but then again, these caps could be bad. And that could be why it's weak, or other reasons. Somebody's been in the reverb tank before and switched out the leads. Somebody was having issues with reverb at some point and did some work. One thing I'm happy to see is we got chassis grounds for all our main grounding points. Although this one we might adjust a bit because it's still on that leg to the Keps nut. We might move that just right into the solder so that can't affect it. That's off. We have some flashing light with the pilot light, but it might have just been a dirty connection in here that needed to be cleaned. The first time I turned it on, though, was turning off and then back on. We just put some glue down in here to see if we can get this to stick back because it was all flopped up over here. Put some weldwood contact cement in there. I don't know if it'll hold or not, but it felt like it was glued all over underneath it everywhere else, so I thought we'd try it down here too. But this was flopped all the way past the jewel light. It was flopped pretty bad. I don't know if there's a death cap in it. Oh, yep, there it is. There it is, hiding down there. Hello, death cap. We'll get you out of circuit. And we'll take this grounding switch out of circuit. We'll put a new 3-prong cord on because the old one is coming apart, which is typical. Okay, here we are top side. Check the transformers. We got 44th week of 1975, 606 Schumacher. Big Fender output transformer. 606 Schumacher, 42nd week of 1975. We got Schumacher, 48th week of 75, and the power transformer Schumacher, 4th week of 76. And the tubes were 75, and the speakers were 76. So we're going to call this a 1976. Please, the big reveal underneath the doghouse. Betting Man says original filter caps. Ha! Yep, those got to go. That's probably the source of the noise, although I don't see any bulging. Not on this side. And this side, not really, but we got a pretty good hum. And so they're gonna go. They're 1976. It's 2023 now. They have served their lifespan, and they're no longer safe. And then we're going to go ahead and do the power resistors too in the circuit. And the little guy is hiding down in there too. And note, polarity is different on these two. Everything else looks like polarity is positive this side. This one's positive this side. So these two are in series. I spun all the labels, now we can read them. We got 20 microfarad at 500, 20 at 500, 20 at 500, 100 at 350, and our 100 at 350. We'll replace those with some F&Ts. Well, I couldn't stand that black grill cloth that was on here. It just didn't look like a vintage Twin Reverb to me. So I replaced it with a silver mesh grill cloth, and I think it looks way, way better. This chassis, when I got it, was wired up for 16 ohms. I'm not sure because they were running 2 tubes in this Twin Reverb and they're trying to make it a quieter amp or what, but anyway, they did kind of a botched up solder job there. And I've already ran a new white lead over here and switched it back to a 4 ohm load, but we're gonna go ahead and clean up that solder joint that just looks like hell too. So we'll see what it sounds like. It didn't sound quite right at 16 ohms. Nothing on this amp sounded right. It was very hummy. We're gonna redo a bunch of stuff, see what happens. Cleaned up, looks a good bit better now. Now we're 8 ohms, or 4 ohms rather. 4 ohms how it should be, not 16 how they had it. Okay, we're gonna change this power supply resistors back to blackface specs, which is what's in my Super Reverb and my brother's dual Showman. So here in the Silverface, we've got a 10K here and a 4.7K here. Blackface specs is a, let's see, we want to go the, actually, yeah, this is 2.2. We want to take the 2.2 to a 1K, and the 10K we want to take to a 4.7K. So that 10K is there. Go to a 4.7. The 2.2K is there. Take it to a 1K, and then that'll be blackface specs. And then these are 220s down inside there, and we'll just update them with new metal oxide resistors. And there we are, recapped filter caps and resistors and blackface specs on the resistors. F&Ts 2023. And now it is got all the electrolytics redone in the doghouse and here in the bypass caps. I think next we'll replace this resistor here. Which one is it? Oh, there it is. Okay. You can see it. It's got a bulge on that. That's on the left-hand side here. It's a bulge. So we're going to replace that one, and then we're going to replace these two over here for the power tubes with orange drops. And then I think we'll be ready for a test. But we plan to also do the resistors on the power tubes. Alright, quick little sound test. after changing electrolytics. It was real buzzy before. We haven't done any other mods besides change all electrolytics and resistors in the doghouse, and the electrolytics and the bypass caps and the bias. And we're going to do blackface mods after this. We're just making sure everything works before we move forward. Tick in the tremolo. Besides that tick and tremolo, but I've also got, we may switch one of the 6-volt windings on the power tubes. 2 of them are backwards, so I might switch them, but it seems pretty quiet as is. See if she's working alive. Seems to make it rattle more with the reverb. Sam's gonna sound great. Big, beautiful, clean. Now let's drain the filter caps by playing till there's no sound up coming out of the speakers anymore, and that will help drain the filter caps so it's safe to work on again. And then we'll double check it with the meter. Learned that from Lyle at Psionic Audio. Tank is noisy, it seems like. Maybe when we put it in its bag, it won't be so noisy. Decided we're going to change out the main power capacitors for orange drops for reliability's sake. Somebody tried to fix this reverb tank with some hot glue, it looks like. Unfortunately, this reverb tank I think is bad. It makes noise, but it's got a ton of distortion in it. And it sounds like these are rattling constantly and just making a rattle in there. I thought the speaker was bad at first, but it wasn't. It was a doggone reverb tank. I put a different tank in. Sounds fine. It looks like somebody goobered this thing up real good at some point on both sides trying to fix it. Instead of just put a new tank in. It's too bad because it's pretty sure the original, I'm guessing that 75 is the 1975, maybe 30th week of 1975. And it was AB 3C1B Ecutronics, Geneva, Illinois. Oh well, we'll get a new one, or a mod tank. See what we get. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of these spade connectors for reliability's sake and solder them in. They're just they're okay, but they could be better. And then use a 9-volt battery and put the positive side on the positive lead and double check the speaker goes out, which it does. It goes out, so it is correct, and that red dot should indicate positive, but sometimes they get wired up wrong from the factory. And we checked this one and it's the same, so we're in phase. Whenever I'm soldering on speakers, I put a old t-shirt or something in there so we don't drip any solder on the speaker and ruin the cone. Now, does not look a whole lot nicer and more secure. I'll double check our impedance. Should be 4 ohms for a twin reverb, 3.9 ohms. Looks good. much better than that goofy crap I had going on, 16 ohm wiring, whatever the heck was going on before. I've got the schematic all marked up, the changes we made. Up here, we added negative feedback off on to the old ground switch. Then we took the phase inverter and did the black face mods to it. 47Ks went to 100Ks, 330 went to a 1 meg, 2 1 megs, and the 33 to a 22. Then the power supply into the doghouse, the 10K went to a 4.7K, and the 2.2K went to a 1K. That was blackface AB763 standard. In the balance pot here, we had put in a 10K trimmer pot on top of it and a 7.5K resistor in series, so we can balance and adjust the bias with this. Let's see, then down in the bias supply, we changed the 80 microfarads to 100 microfarads at 100 volts on both of those. And then ground switch turned into a negative feedback switch here and here. Then over here in the reverb driver tube, we added a 25 at 25 bypass cap and changed the 470 ohm resistor to a 2.2K to help keep that tube a little bit cooler from getting eaten up quite so bad. That's pretty much all the changes to the circuit that we did, and right now it's sounding good. So over here in the chassis, you can see the bias caps got replaced. The bias resistor got upgraded to a metal oxide. We put in the 10K trimmer pot on the bias supply and the 7.5K resistor right there in series. 2 tabs are up, one goes to the resistor, one goes down to ground, and then on the bottom of the pot goes to ground right there. Then over here on all 4 power tubes, we replaced the screen grids grid stoppers and screen resistors. And then over here, we replaced these 2 caps just for reliability's sake. And this is where we did the black face mods to the phase inverter with the 1 megs here, and 100K and 82 or 820. No, it's 82. 100K and 82K on the phase inverter. We left all the other plate resistors, 100K plate resistors, in. We may change them out to get this thing a little quieter. We'll see. They all tested good. This cap here just had a bulge in it. It was a 0.047, so we just replaced it with a new, I believe it was a Mallory. And then over here in the tremolo circuit, we added another 0.01 cap here. So we have 0.02, 0.02, and 0.01 basically. And the tremolo circuit to slow it down just a little bit. And then it was ticking a little bit, so we added a 0.02 cap over here from the 10 meg resistor to ground over here, and that seemed to get rid of the tick. This capacitor here, the old one just didn't look very good. It looked real crusty, so we went ahead and replaced it just for reliability's sake. Then all the cathode bypass caps here, 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 and 2 more right here and here. We went ahead and replaced all those for just standard upgrade. The other ones are old and lifespan expired. So that's pretty much all the changes, and we went through and cleaned all the pots and jacks and switches with deoxit number 5, and checked the fuse. Fuse was the correct fuse. Oh, and then we went through and put in a new cord. The old cord was frayed and coming apart, not good. So we also went ahead and rewired it. We took the outlet out of circuit. It's out of circuit. So we got green, longest wire coming into a chassis ground, and the black comes over, goes to the switch. No. Yeah, black comes over, comes up down here, comes to the switch, switch to the fuse, then to the transformer, and then back out. The white wire, the transformer, in here, and then white on out. And then see our negative feedback loop is on this switch now, and just ties in back over to here to the speaker jack. That's about it. So I was getting a little bit of speaker rattle on some of the bass notes, and they're not torn, and they don't seem like they're voice coil rubbing. So I checked the screws, or the bolts. Every one of them was a little bit loose, so we tighten them up. Hopefully that fixes that problem. Let's do one last flyover. Alright, time for a little sound test. Yeah, it's pretty doggone quiet as long as I got my fingers on the strings of the guitar. It's grounded. This is no reverb. Mostly capacitors, a couple resistors, and the reverb tank. It's bad, unfortunately. And we may have to get a speaker recone. There's a little bit of buzz, but in the speaker, if I keep the bass turned below 5, it seems all right. So maybe these speakers just can't handle too much bass. A box of new goodies has arrived. The Twin Reverb. New cables. Mod tank. AB 3C1B. Small resistors and just random parts and stuff I need for other projects. Fuses with a super reverb. That's the big one for this Twin. Well, unfortunately, these speakers are just too flubby. Anything over 3 on the bass on the Twin Reverb. And really, for the Twin Reverb to sound good, the bass need to be on about 4 or 5. Get nice and fat. So I unbolted these and then tried to pull them up. They wouldn't pull up because they were glued down. I got them loose now, but they were glued down. They should not have been glued down. I'm going to send them off for a recone because it ruined the paper surround on them, and also the voice coil's rubbing a little bit. So I know a guy that does pretty good recones. We'll see what happens. Surrounds on these speakers were definitely glued to the baffle. Ridiculous. So using a scraper and scraping off all that paper that was stuck. Shouldn't be glued. So I've been having some noise in this Twin Reverb and just hadn't seemed quite right. So I decided to test all the 6L6s in my vintage Superior Instrument Company tube tester. And sure enough, one of the 6L6s is bad. You turn it off, and then on the quality test, it just doesn't go anywhere. We're like 10%. So she's bad. So maybe we'll try and run that Twin Reverb with just 2 of the RCAs, because it's loud as heck anyway, and rebias it for 2 RCAs and see what that sounds like. We've done quite a bit of service work to this Twin Reverb and still got some hum in it that I don't like. I'm going to demonstrate, and I'm going to see if we can't figure out what's going on with it. I'd have the cord plugged in, but no guitar plugged in. Flip standby on. Of course, it's quiet. I'll turn the volume up. But I got all these channels turned all the way down. Turn them to 5. I'm getting nothing. Oh, the master volume's down. Okay. Master volume on 5. And everything else on 5 pretty much. And just get quite a bit of hum. That's whether there's a cable plugged in or not. You can hear all that hum. And so it doesn't matter if there's a channel on or not. The tone controls and reverb don't really, the reverb affects it, but even it all the way down, there's still quite a bit of hum in the amp. And then you go all the way to 10 on the volume and changes to this hum. Volume all the way down, master on 10, still got hum. So there's some kind of hum in there. And I've adjusted the hum pot on the back, and it doesn't seem to, it'll change it some, but it doesn't eliminate the hum. So we might try and eliminate that hum balance pot and put in a artificial center tap for the filament wires and see what that does. Either that or maybe the plate resistors, 100K plate resistors, but I'm not sure that's where that hum's coming from. Okay, major breakthrough in the reverb hum on this amp. So, you know, we always know that output needs to be a shielded cable and the input should be a non-shielded cable. And I always was taught the red one was the shielded one. Well, in this case, the red one is not the shielded one. If the red one's hooked up over here and hooked up to the output, we get a ton of hum. But now I've got the uncolored one, which actually I had put that red on there before because it was wired up this way before, but I thought this was wrong because the red on the output is actually over there. So I need to change the colors on here from the Sharpie that I put on there, because this should actually be the white one. But anyway, the output on this one needs to be shielded, and this must be the shielded cable in this pair. If you swap them the other way and have the red cable going to the output, this thing hums like a mother in the reverb circuit. We still got to figure out some of the other hum in this amp, but we're going to bias those tubes and check this hum balance pot again, and maybe change that into a virtual center tap instead, and just eliminate this and see if we can't get the hum that's still real bad in the if you turn the volume up. But the hum is not in the reverb circuit any longer, which is how it was originally. I had swapped these cables thinking the colors needed to be right, and it wasn't the colors, it was the shielding needed to be right. And now we're back to no hum in the reverb circuit. Okay, here's the hum balance pot and how it's wired, and it goes from V3, jumps all the way to V1, then the filament comes back to V2, then from there comes the hum balance pot. So I think if we just disconnect these two wires and then come over here and put in an artificial center tap from either side of the pilot light to ground, then we should be good. And since we're just doing a test, I'm not gonna move this to here and then here to there, even though that's the right way. I mean, this is how they did it. And for testing, because I don't think this pot's eliminating all the hum for some reason out of here, we'll try it that way. Well, taking out that hum balance pot, putting in the artificial center tap has significantly quieted this amp down. I mean, it's like normal now. I don't even think I'm gonna have to go through and do the 100K plate resistors. I just don't need it. They're not loud. Maybe if we did them, it'd be even somewhat quieter. We could also put a shielded cable in from the input. I don't really think that's needed either. The sucker's pretty quiet now. We had all that noise on the volume pots before. That's on 10. Of course, it's gonna have a little on 10. Have it on like 4 on the master. The volume on 6, and that's gonna be really loud. And there's a little bit of background hum, but I think that's pretty normal. Nothing like what we had. It was quite loud. All right, we had that one bad RCA tube, so now we got 2 JJs and 2 original RCAs in there. And we're gonna redo the bias. We already measured the ohms. And now I'm gonna kick it on. Let it warm up. And we'll check our plate voltage and our voltage drop on these. Last time our voltage drop was about 3.6 and 3.28. And then we ended up with a plate dissipation of 18-ish. So about 60%, which is right where we wanted it. Amp sounded good. Amp sounded good with these tubes in. I just want to check the bias on it. Flip standby off. Want the voltages come up. Plate volts 428, 3.26, and 3.21. That's pretty close. Let it warm up for a minute, and we'll take our measurements and do a little math and see where these tubes are sitting. But my guess is, being we were at 3.6 and 3.2 before, we're probably still going to be around 18%. Yeah, we should be pretty close to where we were, and it sounded fine. Just want to make sure we're good. And maybe we'll adjust that balance pot and check the negative voltage on the grids. Make sure that's the same. Just made a huge mistake. Had no speaker plugged in while we were doing a voltage test there. So now we're gonna get the speaker hooked up and we're gonna kick it back on. Hopefully we didn't do any damage. It wasn't on for too long, so probably not. But let's see. Now with the speaker in. Okay, I've got the voltage not on the plate now, but on the grid. So let's move that back to the plate. Plate voltage is up now with the speaker plugged in to 434. And these have changed a little bit too. It's hard to see with these wires in the way. 3.24, 3.12. We'll still let it warm up before we take our final measurement. Still not too far off. And make sure we got a little bit of sound. There it is. Turn that master up a little bit. Okay, so we're still good. No red plating tubes or anything like that. 435. Our old plate volts before was 432, so pretty close, pretty close. All right, let's check the grids. All right, grid of set AB is negative 41.3. See if I can find a spot to get on the grid. And the negative bias on the second one is 41.5 on set CD. Negative bias at the balance pot, 41.2. So we got set AB 41.3, and it's all negative bias. Negative 41.6, set CD, and at the pot 41.4, so that should be a pretty good balance. So I thought that balance pot adjusted the balance of the grid, negative grid bias, but I just adjusted it to get these closer together. Now I got the tube sets balanced at 3.26 basically for on the plates. I'm gonna double check that grid, but the grids, I guess, maybe it doesn't affect that grid bias at all. But anyway, when we calculated before, we had a pretty big disparity on plate dissipation 20 and 17.5. So we adjusted the balance now on the tubes and on the plates, and we should get a better, more equal plate dissipation. All right, after adjusting that balance pot to balance the plate voltage, we redid our math over here and ended up with a plate dissipation of 19.07 and 18.27. That's a lot closer and should be just fine. And somewhere around, I don't know, 65% maybe. We should be good, and the grid bias didn't change. So the balance pot adjusts the plates apparently, and then you can get the plate voltage balanced between the two different sets of tubes.
Mm-hmm.